In the existing setup, not only women, but not even lay men have a role to play in decision-making bodies. You spoke of the parish council. The parish council is a consultative body. It's not really a decision-making body. Perhaps some decision-making to some extent in the church is in the finance committee, because finally the finances that controls a lot of the, and in that, in many, even in the Archdiocese finance committee, you have a woman who is part. So maybe more women could enter into that. Finally, still the finance committee makes, like, it has some bigger role than merely a consultative one, that the bishop can't act or the parish priest can't act if a finance committee, if the finance committee is against it. You would have to find reasons why you would have to act against it and present these reasons even to the bishop if the finance committee would be against a particular step. So that is some way. At root, I can see something that I often thought of, that the root, so to speak, of the malaise, so to speak of, is that what we call jurisdiction, any decision-making power, is linked today to orders. And if you therefore exclude women from ordination, automatically they are excluded from decision-making in the church. Now, this is a present, practically tied down, but did not always be so. Even today, after my ordination, I still require jurisdiction from the bishop to hear confessions, to bless marriages, etc. So the two are not totally together, and we could have a separation of the two much more than we have today. In the Middle Ages even, abbesses had much greater power than women have today. So I could see that there would be in the universal church even, and therefore finally also in the local church, a kind of greater scope to change this present system by which we would have always jurisdiction exercised by people with orders. We would have a different, some steps have been taken. Chancellors in some dioceses are women, and they exercise much greater role than some part of decision making would be in their hands. So we could surely make a lot of steps in that direction. One of the things you spoke of was how in Bombay maybe parish councils have got a good representation of women, perhaps more women than men. But it's not the same in other dioceses. Very true, but that is because the bishop of a place finally is the supreme ruler in his diocese. So no one else can intervene in his. Hopefully, therefore, that they realize the need of implementing the policy, but realizing also that there will always be therefore a short lacuna, because some may not may not see the need, and may not have the means to be able to carry it out. Supposing, for example, women, we have to big facilities for them to access, to have play a part in parish councils. This would be on the place depending on diocese to diocese. I think the church should be, and I guess it will be, moving towards the delinking of ordination with governance. I think it will, and I think that will bound to happen, because certain things the church may not be able to change. For example, if she sees orders linked to the male sex as something willed by Christ, she won't change it. But with regard to governance, there would not be a problem of this. This is more church practice. So this could ease, and I see the need of doing it if we are going to move ahead with the times. We cannot exclude half of humanity from playing an active role in the governance of the church. So I see this as a very good, good direction and a necessary one. Maybe with time, so they can be accepted, but I do see it. And I believe the Spirit will find ways of how we can be creative enough to find such roles that can be played, which are decision making and can be played by anyone, lay people or the priest. So I can see this. Chancellor is only one example, but there could be many others that could be worked out. You spoke of cardinals. At the present ruling is that a cardinal would have to be ordained. That's the present ruling. It was not always so in the past. but at present that is what is required. He would have to be, unless he gets a special dispensation as Delubak got, he asked not to be ordained a bishop, so he got it. Orders includes 3 steps, the episcopate, presbyterate and diaconate. These 3 traditionally have been part of orders. With this stand, then it will not be possible to have women in the diaconate, because that will be, if you exclude women from ordination, ordination really, diaconate is an ordination. He ceases being just a layman, he becomes part of the ordained clergy. So therefore, if you have ordination with diaconate as part of orders, then an orders is kept only for men, automatically the deacon, the diaconate will be only for men. Is it possible that this could change? This is a question we could ask. I don't think so at present, but there have been examples, they say, of ordination rites of women, which would mean that at some time or the other we do not necessarily consider diaconate as part of orders which was excluded for men. So this would be a question which will have to be examined, if it is possible, if it to de-link the two, the diaconate from sacred orders. The link between celibacy and the priesthood is something which is ecclesiastical. So it could easily be tomorrow removed. Not only that a deacon could become a priest, married deacon, but a married man could be ordained as a priest, could be it. And in actual fact, in the non-Roman rites, we have married priests. And today when the Anglicans are admitted, if they ask for ordination, even if they are married, they could be ordained. So this link between the two is purely ecclesiastical. I believe that we will always have celibacy as a gift to the church, but it will not necessarily be tied to the priesthood. I foresee a time when the church will ordain happily married people, married men, so that they could serve, going back somewhat to the practice in the early church, where we had full-timers like Timothy and Titus, and also a big number of presbyters who would serve the church. So that one day we would have married men ordained, that I would see as a likely possibility in the church, and I hope it happens, because it will bring out more beautifully the choice of celibacy on the part of some. It will always remain as a charism. The charism of celibacy today is tied up to the priesthood in case of men wanting to be priests. That the parallel between celibacy and ordination of women is not the same. Celibacy tied down to the priesthood is ecclesiastical. The church sees the restriction of the ordination to men as something going back to Christ, which is not in our power to change. So that will not change as far as I can see, if that is how the church, it's a question of fidelity to the will of Christ as the church sees it. It's not a desire to cling to something archaic of the past, but it's a fidelity to the will of Christ as the church sees it, and I don't think that will change.